The Prince of Legend revolves around a high school competition among 14 princes for the honorary seat of the Throne of Glory. The competition has a romantic twist as they all seem to have fallen for the same girl. The title of the prince refers to a faculty's star student, and the Prince of Legend, who wins the Throne of Glory, gets to be the leader, or in other words, king, for the rest of the princes. The series starts with the first prince, Kdrama, who's the true definition of gentleman when it comes to women. He's gentle, polite, understanding, and very respectful towards all women, including his maids. He loves his mother the most. Every time he comes home, he first visits his deceased mother's portrait and narrates his whole day's activities to her. While Kdrama is busy talking to his mother, he's informed by a servant to head to the meeting hall where his father talks to him from a screen. The older man tells his son about his first love, Arya, briefly, and says he recently found out that she died some years ago. However, Arya has a daughter who's probably going through a rough patch in life, as she is all alone in the world and has to support herself. So he requests Kdrama to find out about the girl Zoe and inform him about her well-being. Kdrama promises his father to look into the matter. Next day, he goes to that girl's school with his 2 assistants who work as his ministers. Ryan has been with him since childhood, while Samuel joined him in the later years. The 3 of them look like a handsome trio coupled with their uniforms from the most elite school in the country. They approach a group of girls and inquire with them about Zoe before heading in the direction they point out. Kdrama requests Ryan to help record the girl's condition so he can share it with his father. However, he soon forgets about his purpose of visiting the school as he comes across a beautiful girl dressed as a princess. She seems to be confessing her undying love for her prince, calling him her one and only. The young prince is left astonished by her innocence and keeps staring at her until he's approached by a man saying they're disturbing the ongoing shooting. Samuel asks the said man if he knows Zoe, and the director reveals that the young girl in front of them is her. Kdrama ends up watching the whole shooting scene from the sidelines and looks mesmerized by her. He immediately announces to his assistants that she's the girl he's been waiting for all his life, his princess. He even drags poor boys to follow Zoe on her way back home secretly, and later at a restaurant where she works as a waitress. On returning home, he keeps watching her acting video recorded by Samuel and looks completely smitten by his puppy love. His condition drives Ryan worried that he may fall for the wrong person, while Samuel keeps encouraging him to pursue his love. Ryan vows to himself to dig more about the girl, as he can't let an ordinary girl be a part of his boss's life. Later, he talks to Samuel about Kdrama's mother and reveals that the young prince has been closer to his mother since childhood. The honorable lady brought him up all by herself in this mansion, while his father was away getting trapped in extramarital affairs left and right. She brought her son up like a true gentleman, teaching him to be elegant, poised, and respectful towards women. While she passed away when he was quite young, she made Kdrama promise before her death that he'll marry his first love and treat her like a princess if she reciprocates his feelings and vows to love him forever. Samuel realizes that Kdrama's mother's words might be the reason that he fell for Zoe, since she was expressing her love to her prince with the promise of dedicating her whole life to him. However, Ryan doesn't look too happy with the situation and interrogates the girl's background before approaching Kdrama the next morning. He tells him that she's a poor girl juggling between many part-time jobs, as if insinuating that she may accept him for his money instead of real feelings. Contrary to his expectations, Kdrama feels bad for her hard life. Ryan tries to convince him otherwise, saying she was repeating his mother's dialogue while acting for a recording. He reveals that in real life, Zoe never smiles or acts cordially, which is opposite to Kdrama's ideal. Ryan goes as far as to say that the dialogue that made him fall in love with her was actually written by the director of the script that they were shooting. However, Kdrama doesn't look affected at all and goes to see her outside her school against Ryan's advice. When Zoe finally arrives at school and finds an expensive car at the school entrance, she tries to walk around it to go to her class, but Kdrama immediately calls her to stop from behind. The young prince introduces himself to her before going on a knee and proposing to her to be his princess for the rest of his life. The incident causes an uproar, while Zoe believes that he got the wrong person and walks away. She's closely followed by Kdrama, who tries to make her believe that it's all destiny since he came here to check on her on his father's request. However, she doesn't look one bit impressed by his delusional self and tells him to come out of his fantasies. Zoe goes as far as to threaten him to never show up there again before pushing him to the ground and walking away. Kdrama and his ministers are left shocked by the turn of events, as this is something they never imagined could happen. Unbeknownst to them, their whole interaction is watched by the school chairman, who seems to have come up with a plan upon discovering the three young men's identity, including their school's name, the Royal Phoenix Academy. On the other hand, Kayden looks quite heartbroken by Zoe's reaction and admits to Ryan that he was right and that such an ill-mannered girl can't be his princess. Ryan feels smug about his prediction coming true and encourages Kayden to never fall for a fake smile again, to which the prince silently agrees. Meanwhile, we're introduced to the next prince named Thomas. He's busy with his workout when his lackey Tyler arrives there with a boy named Chin Boy. The pair tells him that they have big news for him, and Chin Boy goes on to narrate Kayden's visit to their school. Thomas is left dumbstruck and intrigued to know about the girl for whom a prince as great as Kayden came to their school himself. While Thomas has many qualities such as being rich, good-looking, and strong, he has a weakness that often lands him in the face of embarrassment. Despite his heroic body, Thomas has a hard time memorizing people's names that often gets him in trouble. He also works as a counselor at Zoe's school. After discovering Kayden's visit to their school, he decides to investigate Zoe and her background. Moving on, the school chairman's secretary Austin also looks intrigued by Zoe's identity, since she managed to grab Prince Kayden's attention. He inquires with her about how she knows him, but Zoe tells him that she has never seen the prince before, and that he must have taken her for someone else before walking away. However, Austin finds it hard to believe, and decides to look into the matter himself. On Kayden's end, he apologizes to Ryan for not listening to him and vows to always act on his advice from now on. Ryan looks quite happy about it and takes this chance to reminisce on his personality and his past with Kayden. He first joined Kayden as a child and ever since has been by his side. The man knows the naive prince more than himself and always has his best interest at heart. Ryan looks proud to be Kayden's first minister and right hand, revealing how no one ever has been able to snatch his position over the years. Ryan learned a lot of things to stay updated with everything that could help Kayden with his reputation, so in his opinion he deserves to stay the best and be his prince's right hand. On the other hand, Samuel too is a promising youth as he joined Kayden just a year ago but already works as his minister. He's now determined to be as significant in Kayden's life as Ryan and believes in his abilities to achieve that. Kayden updates his father about Zoe's situation and shows him her recording for satisfaction. The older man looks quite happy to see the girl and asks him to bring her over to meet him, but Kayden straight away refuses the idea. However, he has no choice but to listen to his father eventually, and begrudgingly goes to Zoe's home again. Once there, he's shocked to see the building that has small one-room homes and wonders if such homes really exist. While they're waiting there for Zoe to come out, her young neighbor, Harry, emerges from his home asking them to stay away from Zoe as she's his girlfriend. The three boys watch him hop away with a bunch of other girls, perplexed by what he really meant. Soon, Zoe comes out of her home to go to school and denies being Harry's girlfriend on Ryan's inquiry. She looks suspicious to find them outside her home and asks if they're stalking her like some cheap gangsters. The insinuation leaves Kayden furious, and he explains that he's just there to check on her on his father's demand. Zoe ignores him and gets to leave for school, but she trips over something on the road, causing her to lose balance, and Kayden ends up falling over her in his bid to save her. The encounter causes an accidental kiss, leaving both of them dumbfounded. Zoe immediately leaves for her school, and Ryan tries to convince the prince that he doesn't need to worry since it's an accident and not the first kiss that he thinks it to be. His behavior appears suspicious to Samuel, who asks Ryan if he's all right since Kayden just shared a kiss with the girl. Ryan fails to understand the implication of his words and urges him to get in the car so they can leave. Later that night, he calls Samuel for a chat at the rooftop, and it appears that he did realize the meaning of Samuel's question. Ryan has feelings for Kayden ever since he accidentally saw him sleeping shirtless. Although he's in love with the prince, he doesn't intend to express his feelings ever, but at the same time he feels hesitant to let the man grow closer to Zoe. When Samuel comes there, Ryan asks him how he discovered his secret since he's never let it slip by. To this, Samuel reveals that he had some doubts that got confirmed when he watched him try his best to keep Kayden away from Zoe. Not to mention, he always looks jealous of Zoe. They both end up challenging each other, as Ryan believes that his position is unshakable in Kayden's life, while Samuel not only has eyes for his position, but also the prince's best interest at heart. He vows to bring Zoe and Kayden together, as he's aware of his boss's fondness for the girl. Meanwhile, Kayden looks quite distracted as the images of his first kiss keep appearing in his mind, making it hard to forget the girl. Next day, Caden discovers at the breakfast table that his father is coming home. He immediately panics, thinking he might be forced to go see Zoe again. Not to mention, he keeps thinking about his first kiss time and again. Ryan finds him distracted and tells him not to think too much about the accident yesterday. On the other hand, Thomas goes to Zoe's school with his team and introduces himself as the school's student counselor to the girl. He then asks her about the reason for Prince Caden's visit to her, and Zoe expresses her lack of knowledge in the matter before respectfully slipping away. Caden learns about his father's arrival at home as soon as he comes back from school. However, he finds an unknown young man trying to pick a fight with his father and calling him an old man. His attitude leaves Caden furious as he pushes the man away, telling him to stay within his limits around his dad. However, the young intruder, who's also known as Prince Abraham due to his fame as a big gangster, looks at him contemplatively, asking if the old man is his father. Before the situation could accelerate to a fistfight, Caden's father intervenes and introduces his son to Abraham and tells him that Abraham is his elder brother. The revelation leaves Caden shocked to the core, while his father gets both the young men to have a seat and discuss the matter calmly. The older man reveals that he had dated Abraham's mother for some time before getting married to Caden's mother. To this, Caden expresses that he's not too shocked since that's how his father has always been. Abraham also refuses to take any insults, lying down, saying he's not some secret son, but his mother's family's eldest son. It's just that he's connected to them by blood that he has to be here. Both the boys seem to be hating each other's guts when once again their father interjects, revealing the reason he brought them here together. He asks both of sons to take care of his love's daughter Zoe and help her with the rough patch in life that she's going through. They both look extremely repulsed by the idea, but the older man reveals that she doesn't wish to see his face, even leaving him no other choice but to take their help. He tells them that Zoe's father died with a big amount of loan on his part and she has to work many part-time jobs to pay off the debt. She also refused to take his help. The chairman takes out her letter to show to his sons, in which she denies his help, saying free help is the most expensive thing and that no matter how long it takes, she'll pay off her father's debt with her own hard work. While Caden thinks that she's stupid to refuse the help, Abraham takes her side as he understands that she values her self-respect. His thoughts are confirmed by his father, and he reveals his plan to both of his sons that includes making the girl fall in love with one of them and get them married. He argues that this way, Zoe will become his daughter-in-law and won't refuse his help. Both Caden and Abraham find it silly and refuse to do so, but the chairman of Benjamin Group of Companies tells them that whoever marries the girl will get to inherit all of his assets and business, while the other won't get anything. Abraham says he doesn't believe in forced relationships and leaves, stating that he's already in a relationship. Caden too looks confused and leaves without a firm answer. Samuel sees Abraham walking in the garden and wonders about his identity, while Caden discusses his dilemma with Ryan. Ryan shows him Abraham's biodata, and according to it, he studies in a local school notorious for illegal activities, including fighting and gangster groups. Moreover, Abraham single-handedly leads all the gangsters in the school and has a younger stepbrother from his mother's side, Ethan. Ethan can be considered Abraham's weakness as he loves his brother a lot, and both of them rule the entire school. Ryan advises him that he needs to make that girl fall for him if he wishes to prevent his father's property from going into Abraham's hands. But Caden still looks skeptical about it, so the minister cunningly says that he doesn't really have to love the girl, he can just pretend until she falls in love with him. At that time, he can reject her and fulfill his two purposes. Number 1, the property will remain his. Number 2, he'll get to take revenge for the insult she caused him at her school. Caden likes the idea and praises his right-hand man for it. On the other hand, Samuel takes Abraham to an expensive restaurant and tries to find out what he really thinks about the deal. He's pleased to find out that the gangster has no plans to pursue the girl as he already has someone he loves. Out of curiosity, Abraham asks him to show this girl Zoe's picture about whom all this fuss is about, but when Samuel shows him Zoe's video enthusiastically, Abraham looks shocked. The next moment, he looks extremely pleased and hugs the phone, exclaiming something like he finally found her. His actions leave Samuel genuinely perplexed, as he fails to understand what really just transpired. Next day, both Abraham and Caden go to their father and express their willingness to pursue Zoe for his sake. After coming out of their father's chamber, they both challenge each other to win the girl's heart, while thinking that the other person agreed for money. Abraham then returns to mother's home, where Ethan looks extremely worried, thinking he'll now leave them and go live with his rich dad. However, Abraham assures him that nothing like this is going to happen. Later at the dinner table, Abraham's mother and stepdad tell him a bit about their past. The family happily talks about how his mother met Benjamin in a club, and they dated for a while before she chose to break up with him. She later discovered her pregnancy and didn't know what to do, but at that time, Abraham's stepfather stepped up and proposed to her for marriage since he had a longtime crush on her. She goes on to reveal how Benjamin offered to support them financially upon learning the truth, but she refused his help. At this, his stepdad chimes in saying, "He then approached me, and I didn't refuse the child support and took that money to buy this home for our family." Hearing this, Abraham becomes serious, telling them that it means he's the sole owner of the house. The trio keeps looking at each other for some time before bursting into laughter, revealing the cordial bond Abraham shares with his family, including the stepdad, whom he considers his real father. Watching his parents happily chatting away, Abraham decides to tell them about his first love, but before he can manage to utter her name, Ethan takes over the conversation, telling them that the girl's name is Zoe, and he has already met her. Shocked, Abraham almost drags Ethan out while covering his mouth and asks him how he knows about the girl since he never mentioned her to anyone. Ethan tells him that he came home drunk last night and kept talking about Zoe. He also showed her video recording to Ethan and went to sleep while blabbering about his princess. Ethan used Zoe's uniform and background to find out the school where she studies and went to meet her there. Abraham looks amazed at his brother's spy skills, as he himself had barely managed to find out her name. The scene then shifts to show a flashback from Abraham's past from a year ago. Abraham had failed his college exams and was standing above a bridge in a devastated condition. Around that time, he heard some commotion down at the platform where some gangsters were beating up a lone man. To his astonishment, Zoe arrives there and single-handedly beats up all the gangsters, forcing them to run away. Her heroic actions immediately swooned him off his feet, and he started admiring her. Unfortunately, Abraham had no means to find out her identity, but she's been his ideal ever since, which is why he initially refused to woo the girl his real father wanted him to. Coming back to present, Abraham looks extremely pleased to find her whereabouts, asking his brother how she liked him since she's the same as him, brave and a fighting spirit. To his astonishment, Ethan reveals that she's totally opposite of him, a scared little girl who can't even look up in the face of danger. However, Abraham refuses to believe him, saying he saw her fight off 10 goons at a time. To this, Ethan says that he had asked her about the incident, and she said that she was just acting for a series. It's revealed that the shooting director and equipment were under the bridge where Abraham was standing, so he failed to spot them and took her acting for real. Much to Ethan's frustration, Abraham still looks delusional and tells him that she must have lied to keep her real strength a secret. Next day, he drags his brother to go to Zoe's school. The news about their arrival reaches Thomas, and once again he's confused to find out as to why two gangsters would be treated like princes at their school and come to meet the same girl, Zoe. Intrigued, he decides to meet them himself. The scene then shifts to 3 young boys practicing their dance at the school's rooftop, and they happen to watch Abraham and Ethan approach Zoe. Overwhelmed with emotions, Abraham hugs Zoe, and she fails to react out of shock. Oscar, the leader of the dance group, looks jealous at the interaction as he too liked Zoe for a long time. Meanwhile, Abraham emotionally tells her about how he has been occupied with her love ever since he first saw her fighting so many goons all alone. Zoe seems to have no clue about what's happening to her and why random men keep approaching her out of nowhere, acting like they've known her for ages. Not to mention, Abraham sounds quite delusional in proclaiming that they're destined for each other. However, unlike her encounter with Caden, this time she laughs happily and gives Abraham a radiant smile while thanking him for all the praise he showered on her. Her positive gesture makes the gangster prince really happy, and he finds it hard to control his happiness. After a brief interaction, the brothers finally decide to return, but Abraham goes to use the restroom before leaving. In his absence, Zoe returns to her stone-faced self and demands money from Ethan, which he hands over to her without any protest. Turns out that Ethan had asked her to act cordially with his brother the day he came to meet her for the first time. He loves his brother and can't bear to see him sad upon discovering that his princess of justice is nothing more than a sham. So he strikes a deal with her to pretend to be the real princess of justice and be paid for her every interaction with his brother. After that, both the brothers head home happily. On the way, Abraham asks Ethan about the type of girl he idealizes, and Ethan unconsciously mentions Zoe's qualities, saying she should be strong, cute, and a bit mysterious. The revelation that he just talked about Zoe leaves Ethan scared for a moment. On the other hand, Caden also learns about Abraham's visit to Zoe's school, and Ryan urges him to take action as soon as possible. Ethan looks quite shaken to realize that he may have started to like Zoe and spends the whole night thinking about his bond with his elder brother. Abraham has been with him at about every step of his life, supporting him unconditionally and saving him from the bullies. So Ethan decides to keep a hold on his heart and not compete with his brother. However, he soon appears unsure about this decision, thinking that Abraham fell in love with her false image anyway, and she's behaving nice with him for the sake of money, so maybe it's better that he doesn't give up on his feelings. Next day, both the brothers sneak into Zoe's school again, and Abraham asks her out for a date, to which she agrees, given her agreement with Ethan. Ethan asks for her phone number aside from Abraham for future dealings, and she agrees to it. But before they can head home, Thomas comes to the school and approaches Abraham as the student council president. He asks for Abraham's identity but can't recognize the name of his school thanks to his forgetful nature. He's informed by Tyler how it's a school famous for delinquents, while Chinboy recites the rest of the information in a sing-song voice. Abraham likes Thomas's team's unusual style and even praises them for it. Thomas asks the gangsters for his purpose of visiting their school and mentions Caden's visit as well, upon learning that he's here for Zoe too. Abraham is unaware of Zoe and Caden's first interaction and becomes furious to discover that the younger prince also seems to like Zoe. His reaction confirms their rivalry to Thomas. Meanwhile, Ethan saves Zoe's name with the title 1,000 Yen when he's suddenly approached by Oscar, who looks jealous while trying to inquire how they're related to Zoe. Both of them end up arguing in the face of each other like little kids, as they both deny having feelings for the girl. Thomas and his team follow Abraham, who in turn is on Zoe's trail secretly. He finds his ideal going to a secluded corner and attempting to smoke, but interrupts her by taking the cigarette away. Frustrated, Zoe shouts at him and tells him the truth that she's only being nice to him because she's being paid for it. She also reveals the truth of the shooting scene where he saw him for the first time, leaving Abraham shell-shocked. Ethan and Oscar's team also happen to overhear their conversation and watch as Abraham still refuses to back down and calls Zoe the fallen angel. He thinks that she's just surrounded by problems, and he'll continue to love her despite everything before going ahead and kissing her. His proclamation to one day make her fall in love with him is rubbished away by Zoe as she harshly pushes him and runs away. Abraham doesn't hold Ethan's secret transactions with Zoe against him and turns to leave with him. On his way out, he spots Thomas, who praises the way Abraham just landed a punch on Oscar, who tried to pick a fight with him. Flattered, Abraham immediately requests him to assist him and his brother to transfer schools so he can stay closer to Zoe. The news of his transfer soon reaches Caden, while Thomas smugly talks about his reason to accept 2 delinquents in the school. Since he has discovered the rivalry between Abraham and Caden, he predicts that soon Caden too will request to transfer to their school. On the other hand, Oscar begrudgingly claims in front of his friends that the kiss between Abraham and Zoe was forced on her. It's revealed that he has had a crush on her for about 2 years when he first saw her crying uncontrollably by a dustbin. The girl looked torn between throwing away a photograph or keeping it. Ever since, he decided to become strong enough to protect her against all evils. He spent 2 years working on himself, including his looks and strength, so that his first impression on Zoe would be impressive when he'll approach her for a conversation. Together with his friends Leo and Liam, they become a famous trio upon transferring to Zoe's school, but he fails to muster enough courage to approach the girl of his dreams. His failed attempts continue until Abraham steals the girl's kiss away. On the other hand, Zoe's class teacher Alfie discovers that 2 delinquents are getting transferred to their school, so he immediately goes to the chairman's office to inquire about it. It's revealed that he himself is a rich prince and has a hidden reason for working as an ordinary teacher. He only knows Zoe as the transfer student who barely secured the admission in their school based on her academic performance, as she didn't have any strong reference or financial resources to afford the education at their school. To this, the principal tells him that the 2 delinquent princes alongside some other famous students from the city are wooing the girl and transferring the school for her sake. Alfie looks confused at the revelation, thinking about what's so special about that ordinary girl. On his way back to the classroom, Alfie finds Thomas waiting for Zoe in the corridor. He's left astonished when the young man goes on his knees in front of the entire school and requests Zoe to accept him as a partner, earning him gasps of surprise. Alfie gets really curious and tries to find out why he too is after the same girl. Thomas simply brushes it off, saying love has no reason to follow, and turns to Zoe hoping for a positive answer. However, she respectfully rejects his proposal that doesn't sit well with Thomas and his team, but they fail to confront her for this rejection as she beats them to it, asking Thomas to tell her name, which he obviously fails to tell as he's bad at names. She uses it as the grounds to show that he doesn't really love her and threatens Thomas to give up the games that he's trying to play along with the other boys. With a forceful push, she throws him away while Oscar gushes over how capable she is. Later, his friends urge him not to wait anymore and confess his feelings to the girl before the competition gets even more fierce. He nervously approaches Zoe on her way out of the school and musters up courage to finally confess his feelings to her. He tells her about the incident from 2 years ago when he saw her crying while throwing a photograph away in the dustbin. A little nervous in the start, Zoe tells her that she was acting for a shooting scene at that time too. However, Oscar refuses to believe her, saying there was no camera at that time. Zoe tries to get rid of him, asking him to stop bothering her, but he sincerely responds that he can't even imagine being the reason for her irritation. His sincerity leaves her speechless, as he admits not approaching her earlier because he wanted to become worthy of her. Out of all the boys that so far approached her, he's the only one who gets away with it without receiving any harsh treatment, and instead Zoe walks away quietly with him happily on her trail. On the other hand, Caden also comes to her school and meets Thomas. He requests to get a transfer to their school with his 2 ministers, and the student council president immediately agrees to it on the surface. But he asks if the reason for this transfer is Zoe, which stuns Caden. Thomas reveals that he too has proposed to her yesterday, and Samuel asks if he received a positive response. Thomas tries to cover it up, saying she's being shy and has promised to respond later, but the trio giggles, knowing well what her response must have been. Before leaving, Caden warns him to stay away from Zoe, saying she's his princess. It's revealed that Thomas and Caden have known each other for more than 2 years now, but Caden fails to understand why the other boy hates him so much. Meanwhile, Thomas laments on why he detests him. Being good-looking and having come from a well-off family, Thomas has been used to being the center of attention, but that changed when Caden arrived at a party and all the girls rushed to his side, calling him the real prince. This left Thomas incurably jealous, and he refused to socialize with him. Instead, he decided to beat Caden by becoming more famous than him. Ever since, he started working on his looks and body, almost succeeding in his ambition. This is also the reason he chose to woo Zoe, but the girl rejected him without a second thought, making him wonder about her thought process. While he's wondering about all this, Thomas suddenly realizes that he just uttered Zoe's name. This comes as a surprise, as he always forgets people's names, so he rushes to share the good news with Tyler and his team. On the other hand, Zoe feels overwhelmed with so many people pursuing her left and right, including Oscar, Caden, and Thomas, who proudly calls her name in the corridor. The man tells her that she's the first girl whose name he is able to remember, so that makes her his true love and fated mate. Caden and Thomas end up challenging each other for her love, while Zoe has long left the school, calling them all idiots. Meanwhile, the school chairman looks quite excited to have so many capable young men transfer to his school and thinks that the competition for Legendary Prince is going to be interesting this year. He also decides to use Zoe as the bait to make all of them participate in the competition, as it appears that none of them looks interested to participate on his own. Alfie's story is also revealed, and like Caden and Thomas, he too has been living a princely life surrounded by beautiful girls who admire him. His lifestyle convinces him that he's the most sought-out prince until he learns about the Legendary Prince competition in the White Rose School. The winner of the competition gets to be the unbeatable prince, to whom all of the other princes have to treat respectfully. However, Alfie is well past the age of being a student, but he learns from the competition rules that the school's teachers or staff members are eligible to participate in the competition, so he immediately joins as a teacher and patiently waits for the competition dates to be announced. He now looks worried, as the competition is getting tough with so many eligible princes in the scene, but consoles himself that he'll definitely come out as the winner. Next day, he overhears the conversation between the school chairman and his secretary, and learns that they intend to use Zoe in the competition. Alfie is unable to comprehend what's so special about the girl when she comes from a less than ordinary background. He goes through her student records but doesn't find anything notable, so visits her neighborhood in search of some clue. There, he meets Harry, who at first regards him with contempt, until Alfie explains that he's Zoe's teacher. Harry immediately becomes respectful, saying he's Zoe's older brother since they've been neighbors for a long time. He fondly inquires about the girl's performance at school, leaving Alfie to contemplate why he doesn't feel anything for Zoe when everyone likes to associate themselves with her. He's further shocked to hear that Harry is a graduate of White Rose School and asks him why he didn't participate in the Prince of Legend competition when he had the chance and looks for it. Harry tearfully admits that he did participate but lost the competition. Hearing this, Alfie advises him to participate again this year since the competition rules state that past students are also eligible for the participation. Later that night, Zoe is on her way home alone and being followed by someone secretly. This person turns out to be Oscar, who, when caught by Ethan, confesses that he's watching out for her to reach home safely. But Ethan labels him as a stalker until Oscar questions his presence there. Turns out they both watched the news regarding this area being unsafe at night and came to escort her home without getting noticed. While they're busy arguing with each other, a suspicious person already approaches Zoe and starts harassing her, but he's soon caught by both the boys who teach him a good lesson. Ethan and Oscar then walk her home while holding each of her hands to dispel the fear that caught her due to the incident. With their combined efforts of singing her funny songs, she finally relaxes down. Outside her home, Harry comes to snatch her away from both the boys and claims to be Zoe's boyfriend despite her denial and tells them both to get lost with their annoying faces. Zoe explains to him how they both saved her from a psychopath, so he thanks them properly with a hug, but again warns them to stay away from her in the future. On the other hand, Chairman Benjamin gets both his sons to have dinner with him to celebrate their efforts in wooing Zoe, while both the boys keep throwing jabs at each other and revise their challenge to win the girl's heart first. The scene then moves to Harry's backstory. He's a famous hairdresser known for his playboy nature, but girls still like to spend time with him. His friend Hugo is a bartender while Jacob is a singer. The trio of friends is extremely popular with girls. Next day, Harry himself comes to walk Zoe home and tells her that he knows that the psycho has been arrested, but he's here to protect her against both the boys that were holding her hands like their life depended on it. He advises her not to trust anyone easily like a true elder brother. He drops her home and instructs her to lock the doors carefully before turning back and reminiscing on his past with the girl. The duo started getting closer when Zoe lost her mother 4 years ago. One by one, she started losing her friends too, because they feared that now that she's struggling financially, she may turn to them for some help. However, the girl continued to live gracefully and took up many side jobs, including minor acting gigs. Harry once tried to give her his salary like a good elder brother, but she refused the help, saying her conscience won't allow it. Her determination at such a young age not only left him speechless, but also nurtured his protective brother's feelings towards her. He'd sometimes give her a haircut or bring her to the seaside to scream her pain away. There at the seaside, he swore to protect her like a big brother forever. Back to the present, Harry looks determined to find out the reason behind flocks of boys following Zoe to her home. Next day, Caden goes to pick up Zoe with the excuse that her home is on the way to school, but she adamantly refuses to go with him. However, he manages to convince her using the limited time on their hand. On the ride to school, she keeps sitting nervously while pinching her cheek out of habit, which she does whenever she feels nervous. On the other hand, Abraham and Ethan are seen bidding a tearful goodbye to their delinquent brothers at their old school. The boys try to hold them back from leaving while crying their hearts out and try to latch on to Ethan, asking him to stay back at least since Abraham has to leave for his girl. But the pair has always been inseparable, so they leave together. Zoe and Caden's arrival at the school sends everyone into a frenzy as Abraham and Oscar start fighting with him and tells Zoe that they'll pick her up for school starting the next day. Zoe tells everyone not to worry about it and is caught between Caden and Abraham's banter as they both try to present each other as a greedy person for the Benjamin Empire. Seeing this, Zoe exclaims that her doubts are now confirmed that they all are taking her as a game. She strictly tells them to stay away from her as she already has a lot on her plate and walks away. She stopped by Austin on her way to the classroom, who informs her that the chairman is looking for her. The chairman offers to pay her 1 million yen in turn for her to cooperate with them and announce that she'll date the prince who'll win the competition. Zoe finds it justified since the task is similar to her acting gigs and she needs exactly this amount to pay off her father's debt. So after a bit of contemplation, she agrees to the proposal. On the other hand, Alfie looks frustrated to realize that Harry is participating in the competition with his friends Hugo and Jacob, as he hadn't expected him to take his suggestion seriously. The competition has gotten even tougher for him now. The posters for competition are placed everywhere in the school, and all the princes except Thomas and Alfie look unbothered by it. That is until Zoe comes out and announces that she'll date the winner of the competition. Everyone suddenly looks too eager to participate in the competition. In the evening, both Abraham and Kayden visit their dad and request him to end the deal, saying they genuinely wish to pursue Zoe instead of due to some business deal. Chairman Benjamin doesn't mind it, telling them to just get his desired results at any cost. Later, Abraham inquires with Kayden about his sudden interest in Zoe, as he initially expressed his dislike for the girl. He laughs at Kayden's childish response of wanting to take revenge on her because she keeps occupying his mind all the time. Abraham then helps him realize that it's not loathing, but love that he feels for Zoe, but doesn't know how to admit it yet. As expected, Kayden is still adamant that he doesn't love her. Next day, Zoe finds a long line of the famous school princes in the schoolyard waiting for her. They all manage to stop her from escaping away and exclaim that they're participating in the competition for her sake. Kayden, Abraham, Thomas, and Oscar profess their undying love for her one by one and tell her that they only wish to win her heart with the help of this competition. Only Alfie and Harry admit that their real purpose of participation is the throne of glory, or the title of the legendary prince. However, Harry doesn't rule out the chance that he also wishes to irritate everyone who's been bugging Zoe lately. They all seem to be under the illusion that Zoe will actually pick the winner as her partner, when in fact she's just acting her part of the deal. And from here starts the unending battle of winning Zoe over with the gifts. Kayden brings her a bouquet of expensive flowers, while Abraham offers a free toy found in some snacks. As expected, she finds Kayden's gift too expensive and a waste of money, making him frustrated, but accepts Abraham's readily and even calls it cute. Kayden is left to act jealous all by himself and covers up for his embarrassment, saying he doesn't like her anyway and was only looking for a chance to get back at her. His outburst is heard in the entire classroom, including Zoe, who turns to leave the place. She's followed by both the brothers, including Thomas, who joined them in the corridor. On the ground floor, the entourage is met with Oscar as well, who claims to have liked the girl for the longest time among all. This ensues a verbal fight, but Zoe doesn't look that bothered by all the drama, claiming they all consider her a free toy that comes with the snacks. She simply walks away, nervously pinching her cheek when they all start coming up to her one by one, promising to win her over. On the other hand, the school chairman looks delighted to have so many charming princes contesting for the seat of glory and expresses his plan to broadcast the competition internationally. Whoever gets the most votes from the international audience gets to be the Prince of Legend. Kayden practices the art of making a girl's heart beat faster with his two ministers. However, both Ryan and Samuel end up having to control their heartbeats in the face of his charming smile. Ryan even ends up fainting to the ground. The other princes are also seen practicing with their friends and subordinates. Alfie simply keeps meditating while Abraham and Ethan practice their boxing skills. The preparations keep going until the day of the competition arrives. The school is filled with hundreds of young girls fangirling over one prince or the other. The competition finally starts and the participants are asked to woo a girl with a pickup line. Their performance is watched live by the audience, and almost all of them manage to sway the audience's heart. However, Kayden manages to top the charts with his charming smile, with Abraham being the second most voted prince. In the second round, the princes are made to sit in front of each other in pairs and try to make their opponent laugh while retaining a serious posture. Between Oscar and Ethan, the latter wins. Tyler emerges the winner in his battle with Samuel. Hugo and Thomas also defeat Jacob and Kayden. The third round consists of teamwork where every trio participates in the race with their legs bound to each other, such as Kayden is bound with his ministers, while Thomas is bound with his followers Tyler and Chinboy. For the fourth round, Ethan and Abraham win the musical chair game. While in the fifth round, all of them carry the MC girl in a princess carry while spreading their princely charm. Of course, they try their best to woo the audience with their special tricks, such as Abraham winking at the camera and even hugging the girl at the end of the performance, while Kayden flashing his charming smile, well aware of its contagious effects. In the sixth round, they're exposed to a group of trained fighters in an open space, and a battle of fists ensues between both parties. For Abraham and Ethan, it's not hard at all since the brothers have practically lived the life of a gangster. But other princes also manage to do fairly well due to one reason or the other. At the end of the sixth round, the top 5 princes are announced to move forward to the final round. Those include Abraham, Kayden, Ethan, Thomas, and Oscar. They're all tasked to go on a 30-minute date with the same girl one by one and make her happy within that time window. The princes look quite nervous about it since they don't know the girl, but it turns out that this girl is none other than Zoe herself. Of course, that totally changes the game atmosphere, as they all now look enthusiastic to go on a date with her. The princes have the freedom to organize their dates according to their taste. Thomas chooses to invite her over to his home in a traditional Japanese setting and introduces her to his family traditions. The man ends up unconsciously admiring her beauty, which is live transmitted to the audience from the camera in her ear. For Oscar, he brings her to the basketball court and plays a game with his friends while keeping all his attention on entertaining her. Ethan chooses to have a lunch setting with his family and introduces his family members to the girl. As outspoken as he may be in terms of throwing curses, Ethan fails to confess his true feelings to Zoe out of shyness. Abraham invites her to the place where he used to love hanging out as a child. It's a vast clearing with a hint of fresh air that brings soothing effects, and he confidently confesses his love for her, telling her not to forget that he loves her the most. Finally, when it's Caden's turn, he chooses to go all out with his romantic adventures. He plays piano and sings a song for Zoe before suddenly going ahead and kissing her. While his actions throw her off the balance, the viewers, especially his competitors, feel ridiculous as this is against the rules. However, Caden doesn't seem to be caring about the rules as he removes the camera from Zoe's face and pitifully confesses his possessiveness for her. Zoe leaves while nervously pinching her cheek. Later, while all the participating princes wait for the final results on the stage, Caden finally confesses to Abraham that he has discovered his true feelings for the girl, which is definitely love. Soon, the results are announced, and Caden emerges as the winner. He hurriedly completes his crowning ceremony before rushing after Zoe, who's on her way out of the school. He proudly presents the crown to her and asks her out on a date as she promised. However, Zoe simply denies having ever promised something like that. She goes on to reveal that she just made a statement on the chairman's request that paid her enough to pay off all her debts without having to accept any favors from the outsiders. Then, watching Caden act all heartbroken, she points out that it's not like he loves her anyway. The girl has been just a matter of ego for him, and Caden doesn't deny it, affirming her statement that he doesn't like her. Zoe turns to leave, and so does Caden, but they both look extremely sad as she wipes her tears off while the young Prince of Legend seems to be mourning the second rejection at the hands of his beloved girl. Their parting conversation is also overheard by Abraham and Ethan alongside his two ministers. That night appears quite hard for Abraham and his stepbrothers from both sides. Caden looks extremely listless, while Ethan and Abraham discuss that even if Zoe managed to fool them with her acting, they're happy to be the reason that she's able to get rid of the debt looming over her head. Abraham decides to pursue her one more time with all seriousness on Ethan's suggestion. He's also seen wondering why she always pinches her cheek as he watched her doing that on her way out of the school earlier. Next day, Abraham asks her out on a date, and this time she doesn't refuse like previous times. After she leaves, Abraham is approached by Caden, who looks disheveled but stubbornly refuses that it has anything to do with his heartbreak. Instead, he questions Abraham's ethics as to how he can still be in love with the girl who openly deceived all of them. The older prince doesn't say anything except he plans to confess his true feelings to the girl over dinner tonight. On the other hand, Zoe musters up enough courage to finally throw away a photograph in the dustbin, but gets seen by Tyler, who tries to figure out the person behind the photograph. He brings it to Thomas, who doesn't look any less shocked after looking at it. Meanwhile, Caden goes through the standard protocol of appearing in the fan meeting organized for him, but looks really sad, as if forced to do all this. Ryan notices all of this and confronts him regarding his feelings for Zoe at home. And like he always claims to know the young prince more than himself, he catches on his lie to have given up on her this time as well. Ryan angrily tells him to own up to his feelings and do something about her date with Abraham, but Caden thinks that she's better off with his stepbrother, as she always looks genuinely happy whenever she's around him. On the other hand, she never smiles at him and always looks angry around him due to one reason or the other. Their conversation is interrupted with Thomas's arrival, who shows him a photograph that appears to be Caden from 2 years ago when he snatched all of Thomas's limelight at a party. He fails to understand why Thomas is showing it to him until the student council president reveals that Zoe threw it in the dustbin today. It comes to light that Zoe worked as a waitress at that party and might have taken a liking to him at that moment, but due to all the misunderstandings surrounding them, she must have chosen to give up today. Ryan immediately pushes Caden to hurry and intercept her date with Abraham before it's too late, On Zoe's side, she laments on her first encounter with the gentle prince during a party. She was pushed into the swimming pool by a bunch of delinquent girls and felt miserable until the ever-gentleman came forward and offered his hand. Not just that, he even wiped her tears away, causing her heart to sway with his caring gesture. Later that night, she had chosen to steal his picture from the notice board. Several times, she tried to throw the photograph away, thinking about the social difference between them, but could never be courageous enough to do so. She believed that he deserved a girl from a well-off family that had suit by his side, and never expressed her true feelings when the man followed her around. While she's occupied by her thoughts, she's approached by Abraham, who seems to have cracked the code of her cheek pinch. The man sadly reveals that she only does that around Caden, which goes to show her true feelings for him, and sadly leaves the place. When Caden arrives there, Abraham is long gone, and he asks her about his photograph that she threw away that day. He seems to have realized that she never truly despised him, given that she's been keeping his photograph for more than 2 years. Panicked, Zoe tries to deny the truth, but her habit of pinching cheeks in the face of his charming smile gives her away. Caden comes to her with his raw emotions, telling her that he believed that they were fated for each other the very moment he saw her as she appeared the carbon copy of his ideal. However, their later interactions turned out to be bitter, forcing him to think even more about her and feeling irritated at being unable to control his emotions. So he took those feelings of irritation as a sign that he dislikes her, which wasn't the case to begin with. He then confesses his undying love for her with utmost sincerity and asks her to be his partner in the ups and downs for the rest of their lives. Zoe's objection of class difference is blocked away with his unexpected kiss, causing tears to pool up in her eyes. Caden gently wipes those tears away like he did 2 years ago, and she finally gives in as the couple hug each other, feeling the bliss of love. The series ends with the rest of the princes moving on with their lives, as some of them start preparing for the next Prince of Legend competition, while others are busy looking for a new love interest. Thomas stops comparing himself with others, and Abraham and Ethan return to their brotherly heaven, practicing their boxing skills. Finally, Caden and Zoe walk away with hands in hands towards their happily ever after.